Hey team, we are now back. It's 1 o'clock, so we will reconvene the Finance and Performance meeting. Sandra has asked that we take the roll after lunch, so I will invite her to do that. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor Goff.
Present and correct.
Councillor Cashmore.
I'm here, so I try to do two things at once. Ciao.
Councillor Bartley.
Over as well.
Present.
IMSB member Blair. Councillor Casey.
Kia ora, Sandra.
Councillor Collins.
Kia ora.
Councillor Coombe.
Kia ora, no.
Councillor Cooper. Councillor Dalton.
Present.
Councillor Darby. Councillor Filipina.
Kia ora.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Hello.
Councillor Hills. Councillor Mulholland.
Present.
Councillor Newman. Councillor Sayers. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Sorry, here, Madam Chair. Linda Cooper.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, and Councillor Sayers just didn't click the button fast enough, Sandra. Thank you.
You. Councillor Walker. Councillor Watson.
Good afternoon.
IMSB Chair Taipari.
Kia ora.
And Councillor Young.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Sandra. Right, members, we now go to item 11 in our agenda, which is a taxation response to the government's bill that they wish to put in. I've added a chair's recommendation that states the fact that if this bill goes through and our submission is not successful, it adds about 33 million, at least actually, about 33 million to our tax bill. So I just want you to draw attention to that resolution that you can read while I invite Barry Davis, who is our team leader in taxation, to present, along with Francis, our our group financial controller, and I've also got John Bishop on the line as well. So Barry, over to you. Thank you.
Kia ora, Madam Chair, it's Francis Katona. I'll be doing the presentation. Sorry,
Francis.
No problems. Sorry, I had some problems connecting this morning, so that's why there's some confusion. So just, councillors, the purpose is really to seek a delegated authority to the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Finance and Performance Committee and the group's Chief Financial Officer to approve Auckland Council's submission on the taxation annual rates for 2021-22 GST and Remedial Matters Bill 2021. The bill aims to set the rates for income tax for this year and improving current tax settings, administration, GST regimes, KiwiSaver and social policy rules administered by the IRD. The Auckland Council, my tax team and PwC have significant concerns about the impacts of the proposed amendments on the Auckland Council Consolidated Group, particularly two aspects, namely that the intention to treat interest received from Watercare's Treasury funding as taxable to Auckland Council with no deduction offset for the interest paid by Auckland Council on those underlying borrowings. And as we noted in the paper, last year that represented 88 million, and that means an additional 25 million in tax. And secondly, to disallow charitable donations credit, and last year we claimed 29 million, representing 8 million. That comes to the 33 million that the chair has added to the recommendation. The submission on the bill is being prepared with the assistance of PwC, and a current draft is attached to this paper. The deadline for submissions is the 9th of November. Given the additional tax impacts of the bill and the significant consequential impacts for rates, which we've outlined in the body of this report, we are seeking to make you aware of this, and that's why we're seeking the delegation, because the submission timeframes and the technical nature of the amendments are quite complex. So I'd also draw you to the attention to the risks and mitigations noted in paragraph 21 and 22 if we don't actually get the submission in on time. Based on that, I'm happy to take the rest of the paper as read and to take your questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Francis. I had a question, but it's been withdrawn. Do I have any other questions?
A question from me, please, Desley.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I was just interested. I mean, this is outrageous, and I've already written a letter to the Minister of Inland Revenue about it. But my question is on the charitable donations credit. $29 million of charitable donations. Can we get some sort of indication of what's involved in that? What donations we've made that we're seeking credits for?
Barry, can I ask you to respond to that?
Yes, the donations, we actually make 100-something million in donations to various organisations. These are to charitable entities, so they're registered charitable trusts are the only ones that we make any claim, and not the legislated ones, so not to the museum and not to Motorhouse or anything like that. It's only the non-legislated donations or funding to charitable organisations.
Barry, do you have any examples you could just highlight?
Not specifically offhand, but we could provide them.
Mr. Mayor, are you happy for us to provide that to you?
Yes, look, I don't need it now, but if you could just give us a rundown of what they are, I'm just curious to know, and in terms of further discussions with government, it would be useful to know why. I mean, useful to know why they would not want to, first of all, give us the credits for donations that other people might get credits for, but secondly also to know why, when we're borrowing on behalf of Watercare, we'd pay interest on the fact that they paid the interest on what it was costing us to borrow for them. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, and I don't know why officials in Inland Revenue have come up with it. That would be my second question. Why have they made this sort of change against common sense and against historical practice?
In relation to Watercare, I think it's probably accidental in that their definition of a CCTO. They seem to think Watercare was a CCTO, but it's only a CCO. And they are anxious to avoid councils such as ours. There are only 5 of us that have a group situation in New Zealand, and they don't think we should have an advantage, even though the limited companies in New Zealand do have that advantage. Same applies to the donations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Sandra, I'm just reading B. Note that Auckland Council is one of only 5 councils which has a consolidated income tax group made necessary by its structure of council-controlled organisation. And if our submission is not successful, would have at least 33 million added to our tax bill, all councils. Sorry, that's my fault. As you know, I was not really good at this. Okay, I have some other questions. I'll move now to Councillor Cashmore.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Having read the paper, I was just becoming increasingly confused. So, Francis, what has changed to make the government theoretical Treasury people bring this in? Because it's, we have lived in the world for the past 10 years doing the books as is, and this is quite a significant change that would necessitate potentially a 2% rate increase. So why, and do they understand the unintended consequences, or it's just pure theory?
Apparently some other councils have been seeking to claim a deduction for interest payments when there isn't a direct link to them specifically borrowing for that CCO. So, for example, they might loan money to say, let's take Panuku, but they haven't actually specifically borrowed money to loan to Panuku. They just borrow generally. Whereas we, in our borrowings, we are borrowing money specifically which is used by Watercare to fund their capital program. So it appears to be they're trying to fix a problem which doesn't. We don't do that sort of thing. Clearly, but some other councils apparently are doing something like that, and they're trying to stop that loophole. But unintendedly, they thought that by saying that CCTOs wouldn't be caught by this, they thought that we'd get Watercare through, but clearly Watercare is not a CCTO. So what the solution we're suggesting to them is that they actually specifically exempt Watercare, and then they can keep the rest of the legislation as it is, because it doesn't impact us. We don't play games, if that's a way to explain.
So just the last question, to save all this drama, did we have any, or did Ministry of Finance contact Auckland Council for its view before drafting this?
Barry, can you answer?
No, absolutely not. We talked to them a year ago about other things, and this came totally out of the blue.
Thanks, Barry. That sums it up perfectly, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I should just, I'm happy to move this. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'm happy to second
that. Beat you to it.
You go, boss. You go, boss.
Your Worship, I'll put you as a seconder then. Thank you. And then I move to a question now from Councillor Casey. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Just the Income Tax 101 question here. Can you just tell me the difference between a charitable donation and a grant?
Grants can be to any organisation. A charitable donation we treat as solely to a registered charity. They're actually all charitable, but it's just what we claim, and we only claim the very specific registered charity ones. So Inland Revenue can't query us.
So then our donation to the City Mission's Home Ground project would be a charitable donation, but our grant to Eden Park would be a grant?
That is correct.
Ah, okay. And like the Mayor, I'm interested, so Barry, I don't know anything about how much money we give away to charitable donations, but would that vary from year to year depending on what we decide as a governing body? Or is there a standard, does anybody get the same year on year?
It's all set by council budgets, and it goes through a very rigorous process of who gets what.
Right, so it's all going through decision making. No, that's fine. I'd be interested to see, just over the last few years, what we have made donations to. That'd be really interesting. I think we deserve some credit for it too, but I'm sure we got some at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
Sure, I've just got a question. So the council operates a charitable trust in the form of regional facilities, or what was regional facilities. I'm not sure what the circumstances around the merger. So I don't know how this affects our funding of that entity. I don't know whether the council runs inter-organisation loans, does things by way of grant or donation, and whether or not there are circumstances where we might need to change the treatment of things as it goes to this income tax change. I just wonder if the officers could share any light on that as to how things are run currently.
We are not allowed to claim any interest on loans to CCOs or to our own charities. So we can't claim the donation revenue on any funding of RFA. This is what has upset inland revenue, because some of the councils around the country have inflated their donations by counting in the donations they made to council-controlled organisations. That is absolutely not allowed.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got no further questions, so I'll now open to comments.
Just a brief comment through you, Madam Chair. I'm just in the process of emailing out to all councillors the letter I've written to David Parker, and obviously we'll try and back that up with some one-to-one conversations. But you know, to reduce our budget by 33 million without, in my view, any adequate justification for the both changes recommended is really not good enough. And we'll do everything we can to try and reverse that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. A comment from Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I suppose I just wanted to follow up from Councillor Cashmore's comments in terms of a lot of the things that have been happening to councils in the last year or so. We've had that with the tinkering with the NPSUD. We weren't told about that. You know, even though Councillor Darby wrote a letter, no response. We weren't told about this. There's so many things lately that we're, you know, we could be fantastic partners with the government, and it erodes trust. We should be doing this together, but what's happening is we're being done to now, so it's very disappointing.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I've got no further comments, so my comment will be brief but very strongly felt. I think this is, you know, a real travesty for us. I cannot believe that there was no conversation with us around this before it was put together. I cannot believe that there was no discussion at all. And I cannot believe that, again, the government hasn't understood our financial tax returns and the way we do things, and therefore have not appreciated that this would cost us at least $33 million. And you'll be aware that we are discussing the annual budget, and of course we haven't factored this figure into that as yet. And I'm absolutely strongly of the opinion that our submission needs to be really clear, in on time, and followed up, Your Worship, with some conversations that you can have with the Minister around this, because if it is passed in its current form, it has a huge financial detriment to Auckland Council, and we've got to do everything we can to try and prevent that. So those are my closing comments. It has been moved and seconded. I will now put it to the vote on voices. All those in favour say aye.
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 Against? I'd like to record that as being unanimous. Thank you.